My friend stole $100,000 from me and still acts like the victim. I never thought I would be the kind of person to get completely blindsided by someone I trusted so much. I mean, we grew up together, shared almost everything, and I always believed that loyalty was a two-way street. But, as it turns out, some people only see the road from their side. It all started about 2 years ago, when I decided to start my own small business. After years of saving and scraping together money from my regular job, I had finally gathered a little over $100,000. For me, that was a huge deal. I wasn't born into money, and every single dollar was hard-earned. I thought investing that money into my business was the best way to secure my future. My friend Jake was the first person I told about it. We had been close since high school, basically inseparable until college scattered us. He was the guy who had always been there, or so I thought. When I told him about my plan, he was supportive, at least on the surface. He had some ideas, offered advice, and even said he wanted to help me out. Fast forward a few months, and things got complicated. I had agreed to let Jake manage some parts of the business because I trusted him to help handle the finances while I focused on operations. I handed over access to the business bank account, certain financial documents, and let him communicate with some suppliers. It wasn't long before I started noticing discrepancies. Payments that I never authorized, money missing from the account, and vague excuses from Jake every time I confronted him. I tried to brush it off at first, thinking maybe it was just a misunderstanding, or that some invoices were pending. But deep down, I had a bad feeling. One day, I asked Jake directly about a withdrawal of $30,000 that I never approved. His response was calm, but slippery. He said he needed the money to cover some urgent business expenses and promised to pay me back soon. I wanted to believe him, so I let it go. Then the missing money kept piling up, $50,000, $70,000, and eventually the whole amount I had saved. I confronted him again, and this time, he got defensive. He told me that I was unreasonable, that he had invested a lot of time and effort into the business and that he deserved to take some of the money as compensation. I was shocked. This was my life savings he was talking about. I felt betrayed in a way I had never experienced before. But the worst part? When I told other friends and family about the situation, Jake flipped the story. He claimed that I was the one who mismanaged the money, that I had pressured him into taking more responsibility than I could handle, and that he was actually the victim of my carelessness. He started acting like I was the bad guy, like I was accusing him unjustly. I couldn't believe how far he went to shift the blame. Now, I'm stuck with a failed business, no money, and a friend who stole from me and somehow convinced others that he was the one wronged. I don't know how to move forward from here. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about trust, betrayal, and losing someone I thought was family. After the initial shock of discovering Jake's betrayal, everything started to spiral fast. I remember the moment I sat down with my parents to tell them what happened. My hands were shaking, and my voice barely held steady. My mom looked at me with that mix of worry and disappointment, and my dad just sat there, silent, his face unreadable. I trusted him, I said, trying to explain how someone I'd known for over a decade could do something like this. He was supposed to be my partner in this, not my enemy. My parents told me to be careful, that sometimes people show their true colors when money gets involved. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but I knew they were right. Meanwhile, Jake was already spinning his own narrative. He told our mutual friends that I was irresponsible with money, and blamed me for pushing him into a role he wasn't ready for. Some people believed him, especially those who didn't know the full story. I found myself isolated, my reputation damaged, and my business in ruins. I tried to reason with Jake, to get him to at least admit what he did and pay me back. He refused. In fact, he started avoiding my calls and messages altogether. The last conversation we had was heated. He told me I was obsessed, paranoid, and that I should just move on because he wasn't going to return a single cent. That was when I realized this was no longer a simple misunderstanding or a bad business deal. This was personal. I decided to take legal action, hoping the courts would help me get justice. I hired a lawyer, collected every piece of evidence I had: bank statements, emails, text messages, and prepared for what I thought would be a long, difficult battle. But even the legal process wasn't straightforward. Jake's lawyer painted me as a reckless entrepreneur who failed to manage the business properly. The case dragged on for months, and every hearing felt like reliving the betrayal all over again. In the meantime, I struggled to keep the business afloat. Without the money, I couldn't pay suppliers, and my clients started losing trust. It was heartbreaking to watch something I had poured my heart into collapse. The worst part was the emotional toll. I started doubting myself, my judgment, my ability to trust others. Friends who stayed neutral didn't know what to say, and some even quietly distanced themselves. One day, my younger sister came to me with tears in her eyes. "Why did Jake do this to you? You've always been so kind to him," she said. I didn't have an answer. I only knew that some people are willing to destroy what others build if it benefits them. But even in the darkest moments, I promised myself I wouldn't let this define me. Months into the legal battle, things started to get even more complicated. Just when I thought I had reached the lowest point, new information came to light that turned everything upside down. One evening, I received an anonymous message, someone claiming to have proof that Jake was hiding assets to avoid repaying me. They said Jake had opened multiple secret bank accounts under fake names and had been funneling money through various shell companies. This was a game changer. I wasn't sure if it was a trap or a genuine lead, but I knew I had to follow it. I shared the information with my lawyer, who began digging into Jake's financial records more aggressively. At the same time, I was also dealing with another bombshell. A close mutual friend confessed to me in private that Jake had been lying about many things, including how much time and effort he actually put into the business. According to this friend, Jake had barely done any real work, spending most of his time partying or gambling. Hearing this was both infuriating and heartbreaking. The betrayal was deeper than I imagined. Not only did Jake steal my money, but he also manipulated everyone around us to cover his tracks. Despite all this, Jake continued to play the victim publicly. He would post vague, emotional messages on social media about how friends turn against each other, and how he lost everything. Some people bought into his story, which only made my fight harder. One night, I decided to confront Jake face to face. I showed up at his apartment unannounced. At first he acted surprised, but then quickly switched to his usual charming, manipulative self. "I'm sorry things ended this way," he said smoothly. "But you have to understand, I was under a lot of pressure. You were pushing too hard." I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "You stole from me. You lied to everyone. And now you act like you're the one who got hurt." He laughed, a cold, bitter laugh. "You really don't get it, do you? This isn't just about money. It's about survival." And I did what I had to do. That moment was a turning point for me. I realized Jake wasn't just a thief, he was someone who would do anything to save himself, no matter who got hurt. The legal case took a new direction after my lawyer uncovered the hidden accounts. The pressure on Jake increased, and finally, he agreed to a settlement not because he admitted guilt, but because the evidence was overwhelming. Still, the money I got back was only a fraction of what was stolen, and the emotional scars remained. After the settlement, I thought things would finally start to get better. I got back a portion of the money, enough to pay off some debts and keep the business alive, at least for a little while. But the wound Jake left ran deeper than just financial loss. It had shattered my trust in people, especially those I once called friends. For a long time, I couldn't bring myself to talk about what happened without feeling a knot in my stomach. I withdrew from social circles, afraid of being judged or pitied. My confidence took a massive hit, and I even started doubting my ability to succeed in business again. One evening, my sister sat me down and said, "You can't let Jake's betrayal define who you are. You're stronger than this." Her words stuck with me. I realized that healing wouldn't come from revenge or bitterness, but from acceptance and growth. Slowly, I began rebuilding. I focused on my work, reconnected with genuine friends, and sought therapy to help process the emotional damage. It wasn't easy. Every success felt tinged with the shadow of what I lost. One day, I ran into Jake at a local cafe. Our eyes met briefly. He looked older, worn down, but still had that same cold expression. I didn't say anything. He didn't approach me. Sometimes I think the worst punishment is living with the guilt and knowing what you lost. In the end, this experience taught me harsh lessons about trust, betrayal, and resilience. Jake stole more than money, he tried to steal my spirit, but I refused to let him win. I'm sharing this story because I want others to be careful who they trust and to remember that sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most. But also because I want to remind myself that even when life breaks you, it's possible to put the pieces back together and keep moving forward. What happened after the settlement? It's been about 6 months since the settlement with Jake. The money I recovered helped stabilize my business for a while. but the damage was already done. I had lost key clients who didn't trust us anymore, and rebuilding that reputation has been a slow, painful process. What surprised me the most was how some people in our circle continued to side with Jake, even after the proof came out. It's like they wanted to believe the nicer version of him, ignoring all the facts. That was one of the hardest parts, realizing that not everyone wants to see the truth. On a more personal level, I've been focusing on my own growth. Therapy helped me unpack a lot of the hurt and betrayal. I'm learning to set boundaries and recognize red flags better. I still avoid talking about Jake in most social situations, it's too raw. But sharing this here helps me heal a little. Update 2. A strange message and what it made me realize last week. I got a message from an unknown number. It was just a short text. Not everything is as it seems. Look closer. At first I thought it was some kind of prank or maybe even Jake trying to mess with me again. But the message stuck with me. It made me reflect on the whole situation from a different angle. Maybe Jake's story wasn't as simple as theft and betrayal. Maybe there were pressures and secrets I never knew about. Not to excuse what he did, but to understand that people sometimes act out of desperation or fear. I don't know who sent that message or what they meant exactly, but it reminded me that there's always more beneath the surface in people, in situations, in stories. I'm sharing this because sometimes healing comes not just from anger or justice, but from trying to understand the messy, complicated reality of human nature. If you like this video, please subscribe for more.